The first experience was shared by Marta Hernandez, who writes from García, Nuevo León. My story is very short, but it was a moment I have not been able to forget, and to this day I have no answer for it. We had just bought and moved into this house about 10 years ago. It was just my husband, our 2-year-old daughter, and me. At that time I wasn't working. My husband told me I could rest for a while so I could take care of our daughter as she grew. I didn't want to at first. I loved my job and feared losing it because of maternity. But the school allowed me time off and I accepted, partly forced by some health complications. In the mornings, when my husband left for work, I would wake up at the same time to prepare his lunch, then go back to bed for a little more sleep. One winter morning, as I lay down and tried to go back to sleep, I saw, from my bed through the doorway that looks out to the corridor and the other rooms, a woman standing at the entrance to my daughter's room. My daughter was sleeping at the time. The image was so clear. I remember her white dress, something stiff that reached just below her knees. She wore white mule-style shoes. Her hair was very long, brown, limp and tangled. I couldn't see her face, but her arms and legs were very pale, and she was extremely thin. She stood looking into my daughter's room. I could only see her from the side, in a strange posture. It looked as if she were naked in some way, but she was very tall and so thin that every detail was horrifyingly distinct. I couldn't move. I felt a fear I had never felt before. It wasn't just worry for my daughter. Something inside me told me that woman wasn't from this world. I couldn't take my eyes off her, and I prayed she wouldn't turn and look at me. She was completely still, not moving at all. I felt like I was drowning. I knew I could breathe, but out of fear my body started to fail me, as if I were about to faint or fall asleep. As I could, I got up. My vision blurred for a moment against the wall, and then I ran, or stumbled, down the corridor. I didn't see anyone, but I didn't stop to find out. I assumed that thing was now with my daughter. My legs felt like they might fail me at any moment. The sun was up and the house was lit, but it didn't matter. The fear was absolute. I found my daughter lying down and waking up. There was no one in the room. I grabbed her and we left the house quickly. I felt something behind us the whole time as we crossed the threshold, but it never turned, and I didn't want to see if it would chase us. Outside, I stood a moment to recover my breath and my legs, never letting go of my daughter. Then we went to my parents' house. I told my daughter we had run because I had seen a rat so she wouldn't be scared. A neighbor came out, and my mother, who lives nearby, came with us so we could collect keys and close the house properly. We spent that day and night at my parents' house. That night my husband came and, after hearing everything, he agreed to have a priest come and bless the house the next day. You may call me exaggerated for reacting to a single appearance, but you have no idea how terrifying it was to see that woman so clearly. Something in her appearance told me she was not alive. The second experience comes from a person who prefers to remain anonymous, writing from Houston, Texas. This happened in a house where I have lived for 7 years with my husband and our 4 daughters. For years it had been quiet, aside from normal house noises. Then, one night, my eldest daughter, about 17 at the time, told me very calmly that she had heard the laughter of a girl somewhere in the house. It was around 10 at night, so I thought it could have been the television, a video, or a neighbor. At that moment it didn't seem important. A few days later, the others began to hear it too. One of my daughters told me she had heard sobbing outside her room in the morning, like a girl's cry, and she couldn't place it. It started suddenly from one day to the next. The sound of a child's laugh, here and there. A few days later, my second daughter was in the kitchen washing dishes after lunch. The others had gone to their rooms for a nap. I told them not to come into my room and I lay down. With the room dark I checked my phone, and then, very softly, I heard someone whisper, "Mommy," 3 times. I hid the phone light so my daughters would think I was asleep. Nobody opened the door and there was no one in the room. I assumed they were playing a joke, So I got up, almost yelling, but I found no one in the halls or rooms. My 3 daughters came out at different times, and the one who had been washing dishes was still at the sink. They were all confused and asked me what was wrong. When they laugh or call, the sound spreads instantly. This time it hadn't. The girl in the kitchen told me she had seen someone small walk and enter my room a moment earlier but had assumed it was Hannah, my youngest, and didn't turn to look. The door had not opened when I checked. When we told my husband, he didn't believe us and said it was our imagination. He had, however, had his own strange experience before we lived there. When he had lived alone, he woke one night to a movement and heard a rumbling at the foot of his bed, like something walking and moving up toward his back and head. He felt it pass by without seeing an animal or having any explanation. The episodes continued. One afternoon, while I was combing my youngest daughter's hair and we were alone, we heard a very short but clear lament, loud as if it had been inside the house. I tried to calm my daughter and told her it could have been someone on the street, but I was sure it had come from inside. Another night I woke my husband, agitated, because I had dreamed I was in a room in our house and a child of 4 or 5 came running to me, crying and hugging me. In the dream it brought me both peace and sadness. It wasn't a fear. The child kept saying he hated someone and whispered a man's name that I cannot remember now. He wore very old clothes, like from the 1960s, with brown hair, and his eyes were blurred, like when an image is censored. Only his eyes looked like that, while his expression was very sad. After that I began to pray for him at night and even left a fan on when the girls were at school. For a while things changed and we did not hear anything strange. I thought what I had done had helped. Then, exactly one day after I had shared the first story, at 10 in the morning I was home alone watching music videos. Suddenly the music stopped midway through a song. When I went to see what had happened, I heard a very loud child's laugh in one of the corridors. It was close and unmistakable. I ran out of the house, messaged my husband, and refused to go back in. I stayed outside for about 2 hours until I gathered the courage to return. I turned the music on full, opened all the windows, and I did not hear anything else that day. Since then, no one else has mentioned those voices. I still feel that I should pray again for that laughing presence. Have you ever felt pursued in the dark? Have your children been involved in anything like this?